transformed.
NBA fans have a reason to cheer Tuesday night. There's a great hoops matchup on tap, and it's sure to be a dandy. Let's take a closer look at the big game. Get set for a high-scoring affair as the two top offenses in the league take the court. The Milwaukee Bucks and Sacramento Kings are set to run and gun all night long on TBS. Don't miss these teams light it up. The Bucks have taken charge in the Central Division. Milwaukee has won more home games than any other Eastern Conference team, and they're not about to back down to the West Coast Wonder Boys. For the first time, the Kings have more substance than style. Sharpshooter Peja Stojakovic has given Sacramento that outside scoring threat they've been looking for. The Kings are ready to move to the next level. Here's a complete rundown of what's taking place around the rest of the league Tuesday night. Atlanta's Dikembe Mutombo is set to move into 6th place on the all-time blocked shots list. Miami's Anthony Mason has been added to the Eastern Conference's All-Star squad. And the Bulls have won fewer road games than any team in the league.
Hello.
Hello, Clarice.
This Friday,
I need to come out of retirement and return to public life.
the silence will be broken.
Good evening.
Dr. Lecter.
Hannibal, rated R, starts Friday.
Look at me, look at me. Help, help. I'll save you.
Wholesome, playful Teddy Grahams.
Thanks, that was close.
They're so cute, you could just eat them up. Teddy Grahams, also in chocolatey chip.
Make your play of the day with SportsView on the TV Guide channel.
See how easy he is to make? You can do it. You really can do it. Can do anything. Another big tree right there. As I say, if we do get to your area when we're out traveling around and doing demonstrations, come see us. And if you'd like to know when we're going to be in your area, we have a little mailing list. If you'd like to be notified, just drop me a postcard with your name and address on it, and we'll put you on the mailing list. And when we come to your area, we'll drop you a card and let you know we're going to be there. Okay, I'm going to take a little titanium white, a little touch of dark sienna, get that small roll of paint on the knife. Now I'm going to go right up in here, just put the indication here and there of a little tree trunk ever so often, just here and there. Maybe on the other side here, we'll put wherever you think one should be. And what's really neat, you can just take the point of the knife and go up here and scrape in. Put all kinds of little stick and twig indications. It's very simple. Just scrape right through the paint, let some of the light show through. Now, when this is done, most of these will be covered up, but a few of them will show through. And people will think you worked with your little one-haired brush for extended periods of time to put all this detail in there. Shh, secret. Okay, now then, take some Van Dyke brown, a little dark sienna mixed together, and let's put some land in here. Just let it sort of flow downward. Just flow downward, like so. Okay, now then, we'll take some white, some dark sienna, at least a little touch. There, pull it out, cut across. Now then, just let the knife sort of bounce, get nervous. This is where the people that are a little nervous have a distinct advantage. Distinct advantage. See, just let it sort of bounce. There. So it makes it look like all kinds of little rocks and stones and rough places, and oh, little ground squirrel lives in there. He's got to have a place to live too. Okay, let's put some highlights on this. I'm going to dip my brush right into the liquid white, go into cad yellow, and reach up here and grab a little bit of black, because black and yellow, as you know, makes a beautiful green color. Load a lot of paint, pull the brush in one direction. Let's go up here. Now then, let's begin highlighting this tree. Go slightly above the dark and begin just pushing in all these hundreds and thousands of little leaves. Push, bend the brush. And don't just throw these in at random. Think about the limbs in the tree. Think about where the little bird sits up here. He's got to have a place to sit. There. Work on individual individual limbs. A little more of the liquid white. I put the liquid white in there only to thin the paint. Just to thin it, because that thin paint will stick to that old thick paint. Okay, here comes one. See them? They live right here in your brush. All you have to do is just push them out. Push them out. Every once in a while, a little Indian yellow, a little bright red. Ooh, that's a pretty one. That is a pretty one. Sparkles. Like that one. Now, you can use the brush sidewards and just push it upward. See there? And make all kinds of little grassy areas. Just all kinds of little grassy things wherever you want them. Don't cover up all your dirt. Just some of it. Okay, a little more color. Let's come right out here. Ooh, there's a nice little sparkler. See, but do one bush at a time. I know sometimes it looks like when you're watching here, I get carried away and just do a bunch of them at once. But they're little individuals. Each one has a personality. Each one's my friend. Shoot, sometimes I give them names even. Do one at a time. One at a time. Take some Indian yellow, a little bright red. Let's put just a little something on this tree. We don't want him left out. There we go. Just a little bit of highlight on him too. Okay, add a little touch of paint thinner. Thin the paint down a little bit more. And this rascal right here. Ooh, there we go. Sparkler again. These are nice colors. They really, they make you happy. Make you happy. Here comes another one. Wherever you want them, just drop them in. There, right on down. And once again, use that brush sidewards so you can push in bush after bush after bush. So wherever you think. Okay, I'll take the old fan brush. There was a little path that lived right here. So just scrub it in, like so. A little white to highlight it. Isn't that easy? You got a happy little path. And very quickly, there was an evergreen tree that lived right there. Just put him in. And I think with that, this painting will be about finished. I hope you've enjoyed seeing how the little animated opening was made. I hope you try it at home. From all of us here, happy painting, God bless, and we'll see you next time.
Symptomatic anthrax, also known as blackleg, is an acute and highly lethal infectious disease that primarily affects cattle, though it can also occur in other ruminant species. It is caused by the bacteria Clostridium shovoi, which is found in the soil and enters the animal's body through wounds or ingestion. The disease is most common in young animals, particularly those between 6 months and 2 years old, due to their rapid growth and higher levels of activity. The symptoms are often devastating for livestock, including muscle swelling, high fever, lameness, weakness, and loss of appetite. The affected tissue becomes necrotic, turning black or purple, and emits a foul odor due to the rapid decay of the tissues. Symptomatic anthrax is extremely aggressive, with a high mortality rate. In many cases, infected animals die within 48 hours of the onset of symptoms. However, this disease is now under proper control thanks to the widespread use of vaccines that effectively prevent the bacteria responsible for it. This preventive method has successfully kept catastrophic economic losses at bay worldwide. Yet, there was one case that set a precedent for the inspection of vaccine potency and expiration dates. The 1975 tragedy in Carson County, Texas, nearly led to one of the country's largest cattle devastations, which would have halted both dairy and meat production. In the spring of that year, during the annual cattle vaccination, after nearly 25 years of successfully controlling symptomatic anthrax, a failure in the vaccine's base compound left the Texan population on edge for a week. As a result, the livestock pharmaceutical company Garger took bold steps to improve and update the vaccine's active ingredient, focusing primarily on cattle. With this enhancement, the goal was to extend the vaccination intervals from annual shots to once every 5 years. What initially seemed to be going very well quickly spiraled into chaos that was thought to be uncontrollable. After vaccinating a large portion of the cattle at the Carson Road 14 plant, the animals showed an excellent reaction the first night, even remaining active at feeding time. However, the scene was completely different by dawn. When the veterinary team entered the barns, the first thing they noticed was the horrific stench of rotting flesh. Even more unusual was the complete silence inside, except for the incessant but faint buzzing of hundreds of flies. To their devastation, the team discovered that the entire herd had succumbed during the few hours of the night. As shown in the photograph, the cows exhibited the same symptoms of symptomatic anthrax and followed the same progression, but in an incredibly short amount of time. While the physical deterioration from contracting this bacteria usually consumed the body slowly, the vaccine appeared to accelerate cellular activity. According to later studies, the Clostridium shoevoi bacteria had received a dose that, instead of neutralizing its activity, triggered a hyperdevelopment that caused severe mutations in the cattle. Although all of the cows perished by morning, some had escaped the barn, while others, in a weakened state, began feeding on the remains of their herd mates. Those found outside had traveled nearly a mile. Some collapsed on the road, fell by the effects, while others died as they fed on a couple of sheep. This last incident set off all the alarms in the county, as there was no way of knowing whether the cows affected by the vaccine had come into contact with other animals. With no understanding of the Clostridium shoevoi bacteria's enhanced activity, officials could only assume that a potential catastrophe was unfolding. Apparently, the consequences were not as dire as anticipated, as no further cases of the disease were reported in the region's cattle in the following months. With the return to the traditional vaccination system, symptomatic anthrax was effectively brought under control. However, some farmers in northern Texas have since reported strange behavior in their cattle over time. Mysterious deaths, which, due to the secrecy surrounding the accident, were naturally attributed to wild animal attacks, or even theorized to be the work of a supernatural creature feeding on livestock, have raised suspicions. The following photograph was retrieved from an old Polish forum dedicated to security issues in Poland in 2004. Although there is very little information available beyond the post's author's account, a couple of things are certain. It took place in Warsaw sometime in 1992, and the photograph comes from a fixed security camera. On the forum, a user named Jakob shared the following account with a somewhat peculiar resolution. Hello friends, Jakob here, as usual. I've noticed that in recent months, there have been some issues with stowaways causing problems in Białowieża. As many of you have mentioned here, I can fully understand what it means to live in fear, worrying that a stranger might show up at your home. I went through it about 12 years ago, and unfortunately, because of a damned intruder, I lost one of my children. But I think it's time I share one of the best solutions for getting rid of these damned bastards. I'm not sure if it's as easy to pull off nowadays, with so much oversight, but back then, no one was checking, and you could operate well outside the law. I'll tell you anyway. Back in 1992, after my youngest son's death, I was devastated, and I'd rather spare you the details of that event. Afterward, I decided the best course of action was to take justice into my own hands. The man, or what's left of him, that you see in the image is the same one who shot my boy when we tried to defend ourselves. I set a trap for him in my basement, but to do so, I had to modify it to create the perfect conditions. Most importantly, I had to isolate it completely from the outside, creating a controlled environment where I could apply heat and adjust the lighting and humidity levels. After sealing the basement to make it completely airtight, I can tell you how I did it via private message. I managed through a friend who has some contacts in Turkmenistan to acquire the famous mountain centipede. It's a species that, under certain conditions of climate, humidity, and diet, can grow to truly astonishing sizes. My friend advised me not to keep it in darkness for too long, as the direct sunlight was what kept the species at a safe size for humans. So, with that information in mind, I made the best decision of my life. I arranged a specific situation to meet my son's killer again, and after a few months, thanks to the man's own stupidity, he returned. And I managed to trap him in the basement. As I mentioned earlier, I had been raising the mountain centipede for several months, and by then, under the right conditions, it had grown immensely. It seems it did its thing with this guy. Through the camera, I watched as the centipede tried to eat him. I could hear his blood-curdling screams, and I relished it as an act of justice while I watched on the screen. So, to all of you, my recommendation is clear. Good luck to you all. The following photograph appears to capture what looks like a cylindrical metallic structure in the middle of the forest, resembling a significantly damaged submarine. Quite curious, to be sure. It could possibly have been the site of some clandestine scrapping operation, or the remains of a failed prototype from a country's navy. However, its origin is tied to a much stranger and more improbable story. To understand this image, we must go back to February 27, 1965, in the autonomous Soviet district of Yamalo-Nenets, located in the Kara Sea. At that time, the Soviet Navy was conducting exploratory military tests in the northernmost reaches of the Asian Arctic. General Yevgeny Bogdanov had been planning one of the planet's most ambitious projects within the context of the Cold War for nearly 5 years. While the space race symbolized a conquest of the stars, the goal of reaching the moon and beyond represented everything that involved pushing the limits of human physical capabilities. However, there was also a place where man had yet to venture, and given its complexities, he regarded it as a challenge even more formidable than crossing the atmosphere. Hidden in the most remote and inaccessible areas of the planet, amidst a harsh winter, the Soviet Navy had been working for years on a series of vessels capable of diving deep into the ocean. However, the plan involved not just sending a craft to the ocean floor, but also sending a group of men and women who would face the United States as the first to explore the planet's depths. This task proved so complex that many submarine prototypes had to be discarded due to the impossibility of reaching certain depths without sustaining significant damage. After gathering the best Soviet physicists and engineers, even those who had worked on some of the most renowned space capsules, they had to turn to the ingenuity of Chinese experts. Interestingly, they were conducting similar tests, and through the serendipity, they combined their research to achieve what had once seemed impossible. On February 27, 1965, the mission named Predalami 4 would carry 5 Soviet tactical divers and a Chinese marine engineer on board. Approximately 17 miles northwest of the coast of Vagok, in the only deep area of the Arctic Ocean, lies one of the largest trenches in the northern hemisphere. There, at around 7 a.m., they would submerge to a considerable depth of 2,953 feet, nearly reaching the crushing depth limit. In that location, with safety conditions verified after long trials without a crew, they would be able to document unexplored areas that had remained untouched for thousands of years. The tests and reports were being prepared so that, after the mission, the sailors on board could repeat the experience. This time, however, the experience would be different, surrounded by cameras and under the watchful eye of American observers. But that second opportunity would never materialize. The ambition of a mission that seemed to be unfolding perfectly outweighed the wisdom of an entire team of experts. From the Soviet command, a decision was made to venture even deeper into the Vagok Trench. Nearly a kilometer below the surface, they were facing a distance almost 4 times greater. Their confidence was such that they believed the submarine was capable of breaking through the known crushing depth barrier. The trials had reached nearly 1.2 miles, where science had established that a manned vessel could never go. The context surrounding the fatal accident of the Predelamia 4 would never be entirely clear. As seen in the photograph, the vessel ended up being ejected nearly 290 miles south of the Kara Sea. It was assumed that at such depths, the submarine should have succumbed to the crushing pressures of the ocean. In fact, there was no scenario in which that wouldn't happen. There was no physical possibility that the water's pressure could expel an object which should have plummeted due to its excessive mass at such high speed. Some theories suggest that at such depths in the Vegach Trench, currents in gas flows could have the propulsion capacity to eject objects. On the other hand, from a much bolder perspective, some claim that the submarine may have encountered some kind of creature capable of generating enough energy to launch the vessel out of the ocean. Many questions remain with virtually no answers. The remains of the submarine offered little in the way of clues, and the bodies of the crew were never found. This case is just one of many that continue to linger in the shadows today, preventing widespread knowledge. This is due to both the inexplicable marine phenomenon and the responsibility of those who authorized an expedition that lacked any logical scientific foundation, driven solely by the unreachable desire to go where no one had ever been. Nikita Khrushchev's speech at the National Conference of Construction Workers in December 1954 was pivotal, not only for transforming the architectural landscape in the USSR, and by extension, the rest of the socialist world, but it also significantly influenced urban planning. The call was for the removal of all superfluous elements from architectural design, increased productivity, the use of new materials, and applied research. Traditional brick construction was replaced by prefabricated reinforced concrete panels, prestressed structural elements, and modular carpentry with pre-installed frames. At the same time, there was a push for the systematization and unification of models and types for the countless construction components. This planning led to the creation of microdistricts, designed to provide large-scale housing in densely populated urban areas. These microdistricts consisted of blocks of residential buildings grouped into sectors, incorporating basic infrastructure such as schools, shops, and medical centers, all with the aim of creating self-sufficient communities. Widely regarded when designing neighborhoods in socialist countries, the microdistrict provided an identity for both life and the way people interacted with nature. In countries like Belarus, this model proved immensely useful for maintaining some control over the population in the outskirts of major cities. However, the expansionist drive often overshadowed the Leninist ideal of preserving natural environments, allowing these to dictate the boundaries of construction. The case of Microrayon 3 in Minsk, located in the northeast periphery of the Belarusian capital, brought about a series of consequences for the city's economy, prompting a rethinking of how neighborhoods were built. This occurred in 1986 when a dozen individuals reported to police that their vehicles had mysteriously appeared completely destroyed overnight. This situation was reported for at least 20 vehicles, all located in the Microrayon 3 area. When police arrived to assess the situation, they discovered that all the vehicles were entangled in strange cords wrapped around them in irregular patterns. The apparent cords resembled rubber, pulsating and twisting in almost imperceptible movements, both inside and outside the vehicles. It seemed that the very force they generated gradually destroyed the cars, reducing some to formless heaps of scrap metal. Faced with an inability to explain what was happening, the vehicles were confiscated and firefighters were called in to help cut the supposed cords. Time passed, and none of the residents of Microrayon 3 received any answers or compensation. Any attempts to protest resulted in many being jailed, and it wasn't until 5 years later that the State Sanitation Commission provided a somewhat satisfactory response. After receiving an eviction order, authorities summoned representatives from each building to explain the situation, an explanation that was initially hard to believe. However, as the scientific committee elaborated, anger began to swell among the residents. According to what they were told, the land of Microrayon 3 had once been a wetland that was also connected through groundwater to the waste from a nuclear plant much farther east of the Belarusian capital. Real estate agents, realizing that this area could never be suitable for supporting swamp wildlife, ordered the construction of the neighborhood on this site. What they failed to foresee was that a type of life heavily affected by toxic waste would continue to develop in that wetland. Although it was never determined what animal the mutation originated from, it was clear that, over time, it would rapidly spread throughout the neighborhood. The risk of it reaching the urban areas of the capital was a threat they could not afford. For this reason, the demolition of Microrayon 3 and immediate intervention in the sector were ordered. Today, only a few photographs remain of these creatures appearing as cords, along with memories of what was once one of the hallmark neighborhoods.
Look at that, look at that. And once again, begin thinking about the lay of the land. Just sort of let it flow. Because on this piece of canvas, you can create anything. Anything. There we go. See now, if you want to create little hills, it should be brighter on top than it is down here. And that gives the illusion of a little hill, like a light striking up here, and let it get darker, 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 darker as it works down. Just let it go. You know, I've painted thousands and thousands of paintings, and I still get excited when I see it work. It's so fantastic. There we go. Look at all the little hills and little ridges, and you can do it. You can do it. There we go. See that little bright area? It just shows up, little sun striking right through there. Be pretty when it's done. Little touch right there. Okay, let's really have some fun now. I'm gonna go right into the midnight black, and I'm gonna add a little bit of Van Dyke brown. Just mix it right on the brush. A lot of paint, a lot of paint. Okay, let's go up here. Maybe there's some big trees that live in here. And I think one lives right there. And all I'm gonna do is just tap. Just tap, just come right down, like so. Just tap it in. And I have several fan brushes going here, so I don't have to wash them. Take a little bit of the white right on this brush, and watch here. We're gonna come right down this edge, right down the edge. And we'll put some highlight right on that tree. And that easy, you have a nice strong tree trunk. That was fun. Let's do another one. Let's do another one. Same color, little brown and black. Now you have to make a decision. Where does the trees live in your painting? I know, right there. There he comes. And all these trees aren't perfectly straight like telephone poles. Let them have a little character. Trees are like people. Each one has its own individual personality. Oh, I feel there ought to be one right there, right across the mountain. Every tree's different. Once again, spend some time with nature. Go out and talk to a tree. Don't matter if people think you're crazy. Us painters, you know, they think we're a little weird anyway. So that's all right. That's all right. Tell you what, maybe, okay, right here. We'll have a smaller tree that lives right here on this little hill. We'll push him back, like that. Okay, let's go over the other side here. We don't want this side to have all the trees, so we'll put, there's one, right there. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Just drop him on. This is just black with brown. Big one right there. Big old tree. A little more of the brown. Big old tree. He comes right down like that. See there? Look how easy they were to make. And we'll take our other fan brush that has the white on it, and very quickly you can just Go right along here and just drop on a little bit of highlight. Remember which side the light's coming from. And if you're right-handed, it's normally easier to have the light coming from the right. If you're left-handed, it'll vary from person to person. Okay, let's go right along here and just drop on some little things, like so, just like so. Okay, let's take a liner brush, and I'm going to put a little bit of the liquid black out here on my palette. Take our liner brush, and I'm add a little tiny bit of thinner to it, so it's very thin. Turn that brush, bring it to a nice point. Let's go right here. Now then, here and there, just drop on a few happy little limbs, little arms on the trees. Yeah, old trees got some arms. See, just wherever you think they should live. And old pine trees always have old broken ones all over. Look at that. Look at that. This is just liquid black with a little bit of thinner in it. And you can put as many or as few as you want. Few back in here. We don't want this old tree to be left out. There we go. Okay, let's go over here. Put a little bit, right there. Right there. But this is a very nice painting if it's your first painting project. It works very well. If you've painted with me before, it's a painting that'll give you a lot of fun. There, gives us a few indications of some limbs. Now then, let's take the old fan brush. I'm going to use some of the black still, and we'll drop a few little leaves on these trees. Okay, let's go right up here. Now we touch and give it a little upward push. Make little smiley faces. Just sort of make a decision where you think they live. Drop them in. Drop them in. Maybe, look here. There's a few on this old tree. Just like that. Let's put a few on this little tree. Leave some of the old trunk showing. Some on this one. All kinds of things happening. And just let them go. Just let them go. We'll give this tree some. There. See them? All kinds of leaves here. And let some of the sky show through. And I'm going to go right into a little bit of the sap green with a touch of yellow on it. And come back and very gently highlight some of these. Isn't that easy? You have a beautiful old tree. And I think with that, we just about have a finished painting. So I think we'll call that one done. And from all of us here, I'd like to wish you happy painting. God bless, and we'll see you next time.
Hi, I'm certainly glad to see you today. Thought today we'd do a fantastic little painting, and I'm glad you're here and going to paint along with me. So I tell you what, let's start out today and run all the colors across the screen that you need to paint along with me. While they're doing that, let me show you what I've done up here, because we have something a little bit different today. Let me explain what's happening here.